Hello there. Gaijin released a devblog for the ST-A3, nicknamed the fastest gunslinger in the East apparently. The ST-A3 is the first of two prototypes of the Japanese Type 61 medium tank, differing from the production version mainly by possessing an automated gun loading system. So that's why it's apparently named that. As soon this very unique and much anticipated vehicle is arriving to the Japanese ground forces tree, awaiting all tank commanders in the next major warfront update. A prototype of the Type 61 medium tank boasting an improvement rate of fire thanks to its auto-loading mechanism. Its pros is its 90mm gun and its high rate of fire. Its cons is the mediocre protection and the average mobility. So I assume it's just like the other STA ones or other STAs or the Type 61. So quite close to the Leopard in terms of how to play it. Um, So the history of interestingly, this was already open. Okay. Following Japan's remilitarization in the wake of the outbreak of the Korean War, Japanese engineers began working on the first domestic post-war tank designs, taking on board the experience of working with American World War II tanks in service at the time, as well as incorporating some of the lessons learned from the Korean conflict. Japanese tank designers came up with a series of prototypes in the late 1950s. The ST-A3 was created as one of the later prototypes and based on the previous design of the ST-A2, featuring a 90mm cannon coupled with an auto-loading mechanism in the rear of the turret. The design was considered successful, but ultimately wasn't ordered into production due to concerns over its cost. As a result, the ST-A3 was modified into the ST-A4 by having its auto-loading mechanism removed and eventually entered production as the Type 61 medium tank in 1961. Only two ST-A3 prototypes were constructed and closely resembled the later production model Type 61 visually. In War Thunder, the ST-A3 will be a new medium tank awaiting all tankers at rank 4 of the Japanese Ground Forces 3 in the upcoming update. Continuing the experimental ST-A line, the ST-A3 shares a great deal of similarity to its predecessors, primarily as far as mobility and protection are concerned, but also offers a substantial improvement to its firepower through an increased rate of fire, courtesy of its auto-loading mechanism. Visually speaking, the ST-A3 can easily be mistaken for the Type 61 medium tank, which tankers are already most familiar with. This should come as no surprise, as the ST-A3 was the first prototype of the design process, which culminated in the creation of the Type 61. As a result, the ST-A3 performs very similar to the familiar production version in nearly all aspects, making the transition from one vehicle to another virtually seamless. However, the ST-A3 possesses one critical feature which makes it stand out greatly from the Type 61 as well as other STAs, namely an auto-loading mechanism which greatly improves the tank's rate of fire. Unlike its closely related counterparts, the ST-A3 can achieve a consistent rate of fire of 10 rounds per minute. The resulting reload rate of 6 seconds is a noticeable improvement over the other vehicles of the time, thus greatly improving the vehicle's overall combat dynamics. On the other hand, the improved rate, what? The improved okay, hold on. The improved fire rate, sorry, this kind of made my brain stun because uh I read a fire rate and I always my brain always made rate of fire out of that. Doesn't drastically differentiate from the STA3 from its close relatives. Retaining a radar-light protection for its rank and possessing average mobility, the STA3 is unequally unsuited for frontline borrowing as its counterparts. As a result, the STA3 is the best utilized as a second-line tank, where it can make full use of its versatile and quick-firing cannon to support its allies during an advance. So here we will look at some of the pictures. It has the same camouflage as starter tanks, obviously. And yeah, it looks very similar to the Type 61 and has a very interesting looking MG. Um, alright. Okay, here it just says that this will be coming with the next update. I'll be honest, I never liked the design of the ST-A or the Type 61 too much. Um, but it's not absolutely hard. I personally think it will probably be either 6.7 or, which is more realistic, I believe, is 7.0. The Type 61 itself is 6.7, and this is virtually the same vehicle, with the difference of having an autoloader, which gives it a much better reload time, which is a notable advantage. So I assume it might be 7.0. Maybe it actually will also be at 6.7, but I'm not too sure about that. However, it's nice to see that Japan for once actually also gets something, because Japan usually is kind of forgotten like all secondary nations. Um, what I do hope is that we get also on Type 10, but I personally don't really play, or like I don't play top tier at all, simply because I don't have it, and I don't really plan to. Like the highest V kits I have are the XM1 and the T72A. Those are also the highest tanks I play. Um, so yeah, I probably will never play the Type 10, but I think Japan kind of needs it to be competitive with Germany, Russia, and other nations. Um, but yeah, that's kind of off topic. But as I said, good to see that Japan actually gets something. Mm, and I'm, as I said, assuming it will be 7.0. Tell me what you think about the vehicle. If you liked the video, feel free to like it. Or dislike it if you didn't like it. It did also change the volume of oh, hold on, never mind. I said this in the last video. Um, but yeah, I hope the volume is at okay now. Um, otherwise, there isn't anything to say. If you want to see more of my stuff, then feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, goodbye.